I moved to this small town a few months ago, ready for a fresh start. I was tired of the noise of city life, and I thought a quiet space would help me focus as a freelance graphic designer. My apartment was cozy, in a repurposed textile mill, but I need to admit I felt uneasy there. I never stopped thinking about that unease. One night, to escape work, I drifted through an online forum. It looked harmless. I clicked through various threads until I found one discussing strange happenings in small towns, including mine. Each story felt like a riddle I had to crack. I should have walked away, but I couldn't resist. I read tales of flickering lights and shadows. I shrugged them off, but later that night, my lights flickered and a chill ran down my spine. I thought it was just the old wiring, but that nagging feeling grew stronger. I went back to the forum. My heart raced as I read about whispers in the night and odd shadows in photos. I felt a knot in my stomach. The days passed, and I dug deeper. I found patterns and coincidences. My lights flickered more often. I began hearing whispers in the hallways. Maybe it was all in my head. One night I crept through the dim mill, listening hard. "Is someone there?" I asked. My echo greeted me, but no one answered back. I discovered old photographs lining the walls. Residents from years ago stared back at me. Their faces seemed to shift under my gaze. I felt as if they were watching me, so I tossed the idea aside as overactive imagination. Last week, I talked to Mrs. Hale, my neighbor. She narrowed her eyes when I mentioned the forum. "You shouldn't dig too deep," she warned. I laughed, but her words stuck with me, lingering like a bad smell. My paranoia grew. I glanced around town, curious if anyone else sensed something wrong. I heard whispers during sleepless nights, circling in my mind. Had my online searching changed me? Were the townspeople hiding something? I tried to brush it off, but I felt lost, like I was pulled into a story with no ending. Then last night, it escalated. As I lay in bed, I heard a knock on my door. My heart raced. I peered through the peephole. Nothing but darkness greeted me. I turned away, but then heard my name whispered softly. I froze. Slowly, I looked back at the door, and it creaked open. A chill settled over me. I stepped back, ready to slam it shut if something stepped inside. Just then, I saw a flicker of light. It came from the old photographs again, shining brighter than before. I rushed to check, my breath quickening, but the photos were dim. I cursed under my breath. Standing by the door, I felt something cold pass between me and the darkness behind it. I shivered, my mind racing. The whispers grew louder, calling my name, but there was something else hidden in their tones, a warning. I took a step back. A figure cast a long shadow on the wall, barely visible. I wanted to scream but couldn't. I backed further away, feeling trapped in my own home, not knowing what I had awakened. The chill around me thickened, and all I could do was wait for the darkness to come for me, unsure of who or what was behind that door. I stood there for what felt like hours, heart pounding in my ears. I backed away from the door until I hit the wall. My mind raced with possibilities. The light flicker could have been a trick of my tired eyes, but the whispers were undeniably real. They fluttered around me, echoing off the walls as if encouraging me, taunting me. "Hello," I finally whispered, my voice barely a breath. The shadows danced across the floor, and the figure behind the door didn't move. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet stayed glued to the ground. Then, without warning, the whispers stopped. A suffocating silence enveloped the space, stretching and pulling taut, making the air feel thick. I held my breath, waiting for something, anything to break that stillness. Just when I thought it was over, I heard a rustling sound from the other side. I froze, anticipating the worst. The door creaked slowly open, revealing only darkness. I squinted into it, trying to discern any shape or form, but nothing stirred. Then I noticed a piece of paper lying on the floor near the doorway. I'd have to move closer if I wanted to see it, but the thought of crossing that threshold sent shivers down my spine. What if I wasn't alone? Taking a deep breath, I crouched down, ready to bolt back if I sensed any movement. I reached for the paper, the chill in the air wrapping around me like a cold blanket. My fingers brushed against it, and I pulled it closer. In shaky handwriting, the note read, "Find the truth before it finds you." My blood ran cold. What truth? And who had left this warning? I glanced behind me, half expecting to see a face peering through the shadows, but there was nothing. I felt a little of my courage return. I didn't understand what was happening, but I needed answers. I hurried back inside my apartment, clutching the note like a lifeline. I flipped it over. No other clues, just emptiness. My mind raced as I thought of where to start. There was something in those old photographs, something that Mrs. Hale had avoided mentioning. The urge to investigate overwhelmed me. I had to confront my fears. I grabbed my keys and was about to head outside when I remembered the flickering light again. I glanced over at the photos, now hanging still and silent. Part of me wanted to brush it off, but something inside insisted they were connected to the whispers. I pulled out my phone, searching for more information about the mill and the town's past. There was little mention of the residents from the photos, but a line caught my eye. "The souls of the lost remain close." The words hit me like a punch. Something was tethered to this place. Maybe it was time to talk to Mrs. Hale again. But as I stared at the screen, I felt a cold draft snaking through my apartment. The shadows around me shifted, shifting like they had a life of their own. And then came another knock, not at my door this time, but from inside. It echoed through the walls like a heartbeat, steady and ominous. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. Someone, or something, awaited my next move. The only thing I could do was confront whatever was hiding in the shadows. The truth beckoned, and I had no choice but to answer. I took a deep breath and moved slowly toward the source of the knocking. The sound grew louder, resonating like a call that pulled at my very core. I couldn't turn back now. The note clenched tightly in my fist reminded me that I was not just facing my fears but searching for answers. With each step, I felt the air grow colder. The hairs on my arms stood tall, sending chills through my body. I reached the center of my living room, heart thrumming in my chest. The knocking seemed to come from the floor beneath me. I squatted down, placing my ear against the cold, hard wood. Nothing but silence greeted me now. I pulled back, bewildered. I was caught in a strange limbo between fear and curiosity. What was causing this? My mind flickered to those photographs, their eyes watching me, urging me to dig deeper. Maybe it was time to take another look. I stood and headed toward the photos hanging on the wall. They were still and silent, but I felt an electric charge hovering in the air. I examined them closely, searching for anything I might have missed. That's when I noticed a small, almost imperceptible detail. In the background of one photo, a figure slightly obscured by shadow leaned against a tree. I leaned in, squinting at the image. Who was that? The figure's face was indistinct, but the posture felt familiar, like a phantom from a dream. I reached out a finger, tracing the outline of the shadow. Almost immediately, the air shifted again, sending a refreshingly warm breeze through the room. I stepped back, startled. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table beside me. I picked it up, grateful for the distraction. The message was from my friend Clara. "Have you talked to Mrs. Hale again? She knows something," it read. My gut twisted at the thought. Clara had always had a knack for sensing things, but would Mrs. Hale really have more to tell? I glanced back at the photo. The urge to confront the old woman surged within me. Was it possible Mrs. Hale could connect the dots for me? Then I remembered the final words of the note. "Find the truth before it finds you." What was racing toward me in the shadows? I could feel an urgent pressure in my chest, a realization simmering like a pot on the verge of boiling over. As I took an unsteady step toward the door, a loud crash sounded from the kitchen. My heart stopped. In an instant, all sense of bravery evaporated. I hesitated, feeling the weight of dread pressing down on me. The truth beckoned, but so did the darkness. I turned on my heel, adrenaline surging through me. I couldn't just stand there. Someone or something was in my home. The looming threat was now undeniable. I gripped my phone tighter and marched toward the kitchen, whispering a silent prayer that whatever lay ahead wouldn't consume me. The shadows awaited my arrival, and this time I had no choice but to confront them. I stepped into the kitchen, ready for anything. The air felt thick, charged with tension. Dishes were strewn across the floor, evidence of chaos, but there was no one in sight. My heart raced as I scanned the area, expecting the worst. Then I noticed it. The back door was slightly ajar, swinging gently on its hinges as if someone had just rushed out. A rush of cold air brushed past me, sending chills down my spine. I felt compelled to follow, but the uncertainty anchored my feet to the ground. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky and small. Silence answered me, but my instinct screamed at me to move. I took a careful step toward the door, peering outside. The backyard was bathed in moonlight, eerily quiet, but something caught my eye. Footprints, barely visible, leading into the darkness of the trees. My pulse quickened, memories flooding back. I recalled the figure in the photograph, the way it loomed there, cloaked in shadow. Was that it? I shivered and stepped back from the door. I needed to gather my thoughts. Then, an unsettling sound broke the stillness, a whisper carried by the breeze. It was muffled, almost too faint to grasp, but I felt it tugging at me. "Help me," it pleaded, the voice unmistakably echoing from the woods. Was it a trick of the night, or was someone truly out there? The urgency clawed at me. I flashed my phone's light toward the trees, but all I saw were twisted branches and darkness. Trusting my hunch, I took a step out onto the porch, the wood creaking beneath my weight. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice trembling. The whisper faded, leaving me alone with my pounding heart. A sudden rustle made my head whip around. My breath hitched when my eyes landed on movement in the shadows. I was paralyzed, caught in a moment of panic. But then, my feet sprang to life, and without thinking, I rushed toward the sound. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, pulling me deeper into the woods. I fought against my rising fear, convincing myself that I had to find out what or who was calling me. I hadn't come this far to turn back now. As I entered the thicket, my phone's flashlight flickered. Just as I was about to curse it, the light caught something reflective on the ground. I bent down, my heart racing even faster as I discovered what lay before me. It was a locket, weathered and old. I recognized it immediately from the photographs. I gasped, my hands trembling as I picked it up. Inside, it held a faded image that sent a jolt through my body, a face I knew all too well. Mrs. Hale. Then I heard footsteps. They were not my own. A shadow flickered in the trees, and my breath caught in my throat. I was not alone. I clutched the locket tightly, realizing that the truth was closer than I imagined, and whatever was unfolding was about to expose secrets I might not be ready to face. I froze, the locket pressed against my chest like a secret too heavy to bear. The soft crunch of leaves underfoot drew closer. Panic coursed through me, urging me to run, but my legs felt like lead. I scanned the darkness, searching for the source of those footsteps, when suddenly a figure stepped into the dim light of my flashlight. It was a woman, her silhouette barely defined in the shadows. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, tattered and dirty. My breath hitched as I recognized the haunted look in her eyes. It was as if she had emerged from some forgotten nightmare. "Help me," she rasped, her voice a shaky whisper, just like the one that had beckoned me earlier. Every instinct screamed to turn and flee, but I found myself helplessly rooted to the spot. "What happened?" I managed to choke out, trying to mask my fear with concern. "They're coming for me. You have to listen." The urgency in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. She stepped closer, her face illuminated by the dying beam of my flashlight. I could see now that her cheeks were streaked with dirt and tears. "Who's coming?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "They took something from me. Something important. And they won't stop until they find it." Her eyes darted nervously, scanning the tree line. "We don't have much time. They're already looking for you, too." My stomach dropped. "Who are you?" I felt that old fear rise again, its claws digging deeper than before. "Mrs. Hale's granddaughter," she said, her voice thick with desperation. "I thought I was safe here, but they found me." The name gripped me. I had spent weeks following clues connected to Mrs. Hale, the photograph, the locket. I looked down at the worn piece, feeling a sense of connection to the woman standing before me. "You know about the secrets, don't you?" I asked, hoping to understand more. "Secrets?" she echoed, confusion creeping into her expression. "There are no secrets left, only a path filled with shadows, and they want to keep it that way." Then, without warning, a rustling sound echoed through the woods, louder and more menacing than before. My heart raced as I turned, shining my phone's light toward the source. That's when I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes watching from the darkness, just beyond the trees. They seemed to gleam with a predatory hunger. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. "We need to go," I said urgently, grabbing her wrist. But before I could take a step, the air around us thickened and a low growl emanated from the shadows. "Too late," I heard the woman whisper. "They're already here." Everything went dark as the flashlight died, leaving us in complete blackness. In the distance I heard branches snap. Someone was closing in on us. My pulse raced louder than the steps approaching, and I knew that whatever was lurking in the woods had been waiting for this moment. I felt the woman's grip tighten around my arm, her breath coming in quick gasps. The darkness closed in, wrapping itself around us like a heavy blanket. The air was thick with tension, and I could barely think, trapped in a moment that felt like a bad dream. "What do we do?" I whispered, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Run," she said, her voice barely above a breath. The sounds of crunching leaves grew louder, echoing through the darkness, and I felt a surge of adrenaline push me into action. I didn't know what was chasing us, but I couldn't stand still any longer. I pulled her with me, darting into the woods. The trees loomed around us, imposing and shadowy, branches clawing at my clothes as we navigated the underbrush. Fear nipped at my heels like a relentless predator. "Which way?" I gasped, hoping she had a plan. "Follow me," she shouted, veering sharply left. I stumbled after her, trying to keep pace. My flashlight was dead, leaving me to rely on instinct and the faint glow of the moon filtering through the leaves. Suddenly she stopped, pressing her back against a tree. I slammed into her, nearly knocking us both over. My breath came in sharp bursts as I listened intently to the sounds around us. "What is it?" I asked, scanning the darkness. The growling sound slithered through the trees, coming closer, low and menacing. It felt like a warning. "Stay quiet," she hissed. We strained to listen. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Who was after her? What did they want? Anxiety clawed at me, but I tried to focus. The growl shifted and a figure pushed through the brush a few yards away. The moonlight hit briefly, revealing a dark shape that seemed to blend in with the shadows. It was big, something not quite right, lurking just out of sight. My pulse quickened, and I stifled a gasp. "What is that?" I whispered. "Wolves," she said grimly. "But not normal ones." My throat turned dry as I tried to wrap my head around her words. "Not normal?" How could it get any worse? The shadow shifted again, closer now. I could feel the weight of its stare on us, tracking our every breath. There was a second growl, deeper and more resonant, and I could feel vibrations through the ground. "We have to move," I urged, my fight-or-flight instinct sparking chaos within me. But it felt impossible to think straight with the fear flooding my mind. Just as I prepared to make a dash, the figure lunged from the shadows. My heart dropped as I caught a glimpse of its features, elongated jaws, fur mottled with dark markings, eyes burning like embers. "They've found us," the woman cried, panic lifting her voice into a scream. I grabbed her hand, and we stumbled backward, crashing into another tree. The growl erupted into a roar, and I saw glinting eyes approaching from all sides. "Run!" she screamed again, and this time we moved. Fear propelled us forward as branches whipped against my face. I tore through the woods, heart racing, adrenaline pumping. But no matter how fast I ran, I could feel the darkness closing in. Then, in our frantic flight, I suddenly tripped over an unseen root, crashing to the ground. I looked back just as the creature lunged. For a fleeting second, I felt its breath on my neck. "Get up!" the woman yelled, reaching for me. Her eyes were wide with terror. I scrambled to my feet, and without thinking, I grabbed the locket from my pocket and held it out as if it could shield us. That's when I felt it. A surge of energy rippled through the air, and the creature halted momentarily, confusion flickering in its predatory eyes. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew one thing for sure. We weren't out of danger yet. "What does it want?" I shouted, but the answer lay just outside the perimeter of my understanding. We took off once more, not knowing if this was indeed the right choice, or if we were running straight into the jaws of fate. The forest around us was alive with chaos. We barely made it a few paces before the creature roared again, its primal sound reverberating through the air. The force behind that growl was enough to freeze me for a split second, and I almost stumbled again. There was more than one of them now, I realized. The growls were coming from all directions, a terrible chorus of snarls and hisses. "Keep moving," the woman yelled, yanking my arm. I nodded, fear propelling me forward once more, even as my mind spun in confusion. We pushed deeper into the woods, zigzagging between the trees, trying to create distance. My eyes darted around, scanning the shadows for any sign of our pursuers. It was as if the darkness itself had come alive, ready to swallow us whole. "Just a little further," she urged, glancing back. Her face was pale, almost ghost-like in the moonlight, and I could see blood dribbling from a scratch on her arm. "We need to find the stream." "Why the stream?" I gasped, still trying to keep pace. "They don't like water," she replied breathlessly. I didn't know how she knew these things, but I clung to the hope that whatever hunted us had its limits. We raced forward, the sound of rushing water becoming more pronounced as we drew closer. Just as I thought we had a chance, I heard a low growl echo behind us. I took a quick glance over my shoulder. The creature was there, galloping with an unnatural speed, its eyes shining like harsh diamonds in the darkness. "Faster!" she screamed, and I pushed myself harder, lungs burning. But my legs felt like lead. The stream came into view, a narrow ribbon of water weaving through the trees. Relief flooded me for a split second. "This way." She pointed to a fallen log that crossed the water. It was our only option. We neared the stream, and I could see the glint of moonlight reflecting off the water. I took a tentative step onto the log, feeling its unstable surface wobble beneath my weight. She followed closely behind, and together we crossed as carefully as we could, every move filled with urgency. Behind us I could hear the creature stop at the water's edge, snarling in frustration. "Now what?" I breathlessly asked as we reached the other side, my heart pounding. "Let's keep moving downstream. We can't stop here." She glanced back, her eyes wide. The creature was pacing on the opposite bank, searching for a way to cross, its thick fur bristling in the dim light. As we continued moving, I couldn't shake a feeling that something was off. I turned to her, about to ask how long we needed to keep running when I caught sight of a glimmer under the water. It was something shiny, but it was buried under the surface, barely visible. "Wait," I said, instinctively reaching for it. Curiosity overpowered fear for a moment. I bent down, and as my fingers wrapped around it, I pulled something cold and metallic from the stream. It was a key, a heavy, ornate key that felt oddly warm in my hand. "That's it," the woman cried, her voice suddenly urgent. "You found it." "What is this?" I asked, holding it up. But before she could answer, the creature let out a furious howl, and I knew we had to keep moving. We were far from safe, and whatever we had stumbled upon only added to the weight of unfolding tension. "We need to find out what it unlocks," she urged, her face a mixture of fear and determination. I clenched the key tightly, my mind racing. This was becoming more complicated than I ever imagined. With the creature's furious snarls echoing behind us, I felt the winds of fate shifting around us, and whatever came next, I knew it wouldn't be good. We moved faster now, the key a heavy burden in my pocket, reminding me of how much was at stake. The raging waters of the stream filled my ears, masking the creature's growls for a moment. But even with the sound of water, my heart still raced as fear coursed through me. "Why did you seem so excited about that key?" I panted, struggling to keep up with her longer strides. "I thought it could lead us to safety," she replied, glancing back. "But we can't stop to figure it out now." The confidence in her voice put me on edge. What if the key didn't hold any answers? What if it only unlocked more danger? Thoughts raced through my head, each darker than the last. Suddenly we entered a clearing. The moonlight poured over the area, illuminating a series of ancient stones arranged like a circle. I stopped in my tracks, both awe and dread washing over me. The stones looked like they were part of some old ritual site. "Do you see that?" she said, pointing. "That opens up to the other side." I followed her gaze, heart sinking further. In the middle of the stone circle, there was an archway that shimmered. It didn't seem to belong to this world, and the ominous aura surrounding it made my instincts scream to run. "I don't know about this," I said, doubt creeping in. "What if it's a trap?" "Trust me," she insisted. "We don't have time to second-guess. If the beasts cross the water, we won't have a chance." Before I had the chance to argue, she pulled me toward the archway. I hesitated briefly, but the snarls of the creature echoed behind us, a sound that felt too close for comfort. "Go," she urged, pushing me slightly. Taking a deep breath, I entered the archway with her, the air around us crackling with energy. On the other side, darkness surrounded us, pooling like thick fog. I took a step forward, and the ground felt solid beneath my feet. Suddenly the feeling of being watched washed over me. It was a primal, instinctual fear. Something was lurking beyond the veil of shadows. "What now?" I whispered, trying to suppress the trembling in my voice. "The key," she said, her eyes scanning the darkness. "We need to find a way to use it here. It's our only hope." We stepped further into the shadows, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The air felt charged, as if invisible eyes were tracking our every move. As I looked around, I noticed symbols carved into the ground, ancient symbols like the ones on the stones outside. They glowed faintly, illuminating our path. But right then, I saw it. A shadow, larger than before, darted at the corner of my vision. It retreated into the dark, but it left behind an overwhelming sense of dread. "Did you see that?" I stammered. "Stay close," she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. Before I could respond, a series of snarls erupted in the distance, closer this time. The creature was gone, but it felt like a different threat was rising. As we moved deeper into the darkness, I realized we had to act quickly. "Let's hurry," I urged, glancing back at the entrance. The archway shimmered, but there was nothing but inky blackness beyond it now. That's when I felt it. A bone-chilling shiver ran down my spine as a figure emerged from the shadows, its silhouette towering and menacing. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its gaze locking onto us. Fear seized my chest. Whatever hunted us was here, and I knew we might have just stumbled into a trap more dangerous than we could have ever imagined. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I stood frozen in place. The figure loomed closer, its shape becoming less indistinct in the dim light. I could barely breathe as panic clawed at my throat, and I grabbed the key in my pocket, half hoping it would somehow protect us. "Do you think it can help?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, looking at her with pleading eyes. "I don't know," she murmured, swallowing hard. "But we have to try." The creature stepped forward, breaking the spell of disbelief. It was huge, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. I could see its razor-sharp teeth glinting, and every instinct in my body screamed to run. But there was nowhere to go. The archway glimmered behind us, but escape felt miles away. "What's your plan?" I asked desperately. "Remember those symbols," she said, standing her ground. "If we can match the key to one of them, maybe it'll do something." My heart raced. The symbols were everywhere, glowing faintly like forgotten stars in this dark void. But which one? The creature snarled again, and its growl echoed off the walls, filling the air with a chilling resonance. "Let's try that one," I said, pointing to a symbol that resembled an eye, encircled with intricate lines. As we moved closer, the creature hesitated, its eyes flickering. I hoped it was just as uncertain as I felt, but its hunger stirred the air with a palpable tension. With shaky hands, I pulled the key from my pocket, feeling its weight as I approached the glowing symbol. "Now what?" I asked, glancing nervously in the creature's direction. "Press it against the symbol," she shouted, her urgency snapping me out of my daze. I pressed the key against the glowing symbol. The moment it touched the surface, a rush of energy shot through me. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and the creature let out a piercing shriek that echoed like thunder. I stumbled back, watching as the symbol erupted with light, expanding outward like a shockwave. "Run," she cried, grabbing my arm and pulling me away from the creature, which was now thrashing against the force of the burst of energy. We sprinted in the opposite direction, the darkness swirling around us like a tempest. The light didn't have the calming effect I'd hoped for. Rather, it felt as if the shadows were fighting back against it. The ground shook again, and I could hear the creature roaring behind us, furious and desperate. "We need to find another symbol," she shouted over her shoulder. "But what if it doesn't work?" I yelled back, fear lacing my words. "It's our only chance," she insisted, her voice a mix of fear and determination. Just then, the ground began to crack. A fissure opened where we had been standing, and I felt my stomach drop. We had to move faster, but the darkness felt thicker now, and I could hardly see where we were going. And that's when I heard it. A whisper, soft yet clear, floating through the chaos. "Turn back." I stopped dead, frozen in confusion. What was happening? Who was that? An icy shiver ran down my spine. "Did you hear that?" I gasped, searching her face for answers. "We can't stop," she said urgently, pulling me forward. "Whatever it is, it's not friendly." But doubt gnawed at me. As we pushed through the shadows, I couldn't help but wonder, what if I was meant to turn back? The answer hung heavy in the air, and the darkness seemed to close in, threatening to swallow us whole. I continued alongside her, the whispers swirling around us like the fog. Panic pulsed through my veins, whispering fears of the creature that was hunting us. With every step, I could sense the ground beneath us shifting, as if the earth itself was alive. "Look," she shouted, halting me in my tracks. Ahead, another glowing symbol flickered like a beacon in the oppressive darkness. My heart leaped in my chest. It resembled a spiral that expanded outward, pulsing softly with promise. "Is this one safe?" I asked, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the glowing eyes of the creature to break through the shadows at any moment. "If we don't activate it, we won't find out," she said, determination plain on her face. "We need to try." With the echoes of the creature's growls still haunting our ears, I stepped forward, the key now feeling warm, as if it was alive. I pressed it against the spiral symbol, and again the ground trembled, and a surge of energy radiated outward. Suddenly, a surge of light erupted, blasting through the dark and illuminating the entire space. The creature screeched as the light pressed back against the shadows, but I noticed something odd. The shadows didn't just retreat, they twisted, curling away into the corners of the archway we had passed through. "Go!" she yelled again, sensing the change. We bolted toward the narrowing light emanating from the arch. As we fled, the world around us melted beneath our hurried steps. Trees blurred by our speed, the cold grip of darkness now feeling like a distant memory. But the growls of the creature echoed behind us, their sounds becoming frantic, like a beast cornered. I wasn't sure how much longer we could sustain this rush, not knowing what lay ahead. Just when I thought we might escape, I felt a cold wind whip past us, a sinister whisper brushing against my ear as the dark entity lunged from the shadows with unfathomable speed. My heart raced. I pushed harder, urging my legs to carry me faster, but my breath felt leaden. Then the world around me seemed to splinter. I nearly stumbled as I caught the edges of the archway, its shimmer now a horizon of escape. No turning back now. With palpable fear electrifying every muscle in my body, we shot through the archway, pushing away from the howls and back into the world beyond. We tumbled onto the soft ground, gasping for air, heartbeats thumping loudly in our chests. But the oppressive silence that followed was deafening. I looked around, the woods now quiet, the chaos all but vanished. We were in the clearing we had entered earlier, the stone circle silent and still. The archway behind us was nothing but a dim haze of light. "What just happened?" she panted, swaying slightly as she tried to catch her breath. I don't know. Did we make it?" I gasped, our legs trembling as the adrenaline faded. Shadows flittered between the trees, but no growls chased us now, just the tranquil sounds of nature folding back into place. "I think maybe we did," she murmured, glancing around. "But we shouldn't stay here." We began to gather ourselves, both silently contemplating everything we had just faced. The whispers, the shadows, the hunt. "What was that thing?" I murmured as we began navigating back toward the trail. "I don't know," she said, brow furrowed in thought. "But it's tied to this land, to the past." As we walked, I felt the locket in my pocket shift against my leg, an uncomfortable reminder of the mysteries surrounding us. "Do you think we'll ever know the truth?" I wondered aloud. "Maybe," she replied, looking back toward the unfathomable woods. "But some things are just best left in the dark." I nodded, remembering the note and the warning it held. Find the truth before it finds you. Had we done that? I didn't know if the truth would always remain elusive, or if it lay lurking around us, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself once more. As we finally reached the edge of the woods, the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow across the clearing. Its light felt like a blessing, driving away the shadows clinging to our minds. Yet, as peaceful as the day seemed, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had remained in those woods was still watching, waiting, perhaps biding its time. "I think we should leave this town," I said finally. "I don't want to be anywhere near whatever that was." She agreed quietly, and together we made our way back to our lives, both altered and yet untouched, walking the line between reality and the uncharted territories of fear, the unanswered questions lingering like the shadows we once escaped. I moved to a different city shortly after that. Sometimes, I wonder if Mrs. Hale's granddaughter is still out there, tangled in the secrets of her family's past, or if those shadows still linger in the woods, waiting for another unsuspecting soul like me to wander too close. But mostly I just try not to think about it, just